We will start in a couple of minutes. All right, it's 8 o'clock. We'll continue from what we started on Monday in Chapter 7, Section 4. This is the section on solving equations with rational expressions. And we got to this problem at the bottom. 2/3 plus 1/5 equals 1 over x. So the method that we've been using, first we find the least common denominator. The denominators are 3, 5, and x. So the least common multiple of the denominators is 15 times x. Then to clear the denominators, we multiply every term on both sides by 15x. Okay, so multiply 15x. You can think of that as 15x over 1. 15x over 1 times 2/3 plus 15x over 1 times 1/5. And then on the right-hand side, 15x over 1 times 1 over x. And then in the next step, we simplify the products by canceling common factors from the numerator and denominator. So 3 goes into 15 5 times, and 3 goes into 3 once. So this term becomes 5x times 2, or 10x. Then in the next term, 15x over 1 times 1/5. 5 goes into 5 once and into 15 3 times. So this term becomes 3x over 1 times 1 over 1, or just plus 3x. On the right-hand side, the x's cancels, so we're just left with 15. The resulting equation is simple to solve. First, we add 10x plus 3x to get 13x equals 15. And then divide both sides by 13. The solution is x equals 15 over 13. Okay, that's one way to do it. So we'll focus on that method for a few more complicated ones. Okay, solve this equation with rational expressions. 2 over x plus 2 plus 4 over x minus 2 equals x minus 1 over x squared minus 4. So note that x squared minus 4 is the product of x plus 2 and x minus 2. So the least common multiple of the denominators, or just the least common denominator, is x plus 2 times x minus 2. So if we multiply every term on both sides of that equation by x plus 2 times x minus 2, we will clear the denominators. So in the first step, x plus 2 times x minus 2 over 1, multiply that by 2 over x plus 2. And then multiply it by the next term, x plus 2 times x minus 2 over 1 times 4 over x minus 2. On the right-hand side, since x plus 2 times x minus 2 is x squared minus 4, I'm just going to write x squared minus 4 over 1 times x minus 1 over x squared minus 4. Okay, it looks worse before it looks better, but the payoff will be good. On this first product, we cancel the common binomial factors x plus 2 divided by x plus 2. And then we'll get x minus 2 times 2. In the next product, cancel the binomial factors x minus 2 divided by x minus 2. And we're left with x plus 2 times 4. On the right-hand side, x squared minus 4 divided by x squared minus 4 cancels. So the right-hand side is just x minus 1. And this equation is pretty easy to solve. We have to apply the distributive property a couple of times. X minus 2 times 2 is 2x minus 4. And then plus x plus 2 times 4 is plus 4x plus 8 equals x minus 1. We'll combine like terms on the left-hand side. 2x plus 4x is 6x. Minus 4 plus 8 is plus 4. And that equals x minus 1. Then subtract x from both sides, and we'll also subtract 4 from both sides. So 6x minus x is 5x. And when we subtract 4 from both sides, negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. And then divide by 5, we get x equals negative 1. So always keep in mind what the restricted values are. In the original equation, the restricted values The restricted values are -2 and +2. Since the solution we got is not a restricted value, then it's the solution to that equation. If we come up with a solution that is a restricted value, then we cannot list it as a solution, since if it's restricted. Okay, the next problem. Another equation with rational expressions. 5 over y plus 3 plus 2 over y minus 3 equals 15 over y squared minus 9. And note that y squared minus 9 is just y plus 3 times y minus 3. So the least common denominator, you can write it as in factored form, y plus 3 times y minus 3, or you can write it in expanded form, y squared minus 9. Okay, so we multiply every term on both sides by the least common denominator. So on the left, y plus 3 times y minus 3 over 1 times 5 over y minus 5 over y plus 3. And then multiply the next term by the least common denominator, y plus 3 times y minus 3 over 1 times 2 over y minus 3. And also on the right-hand side, multiply by y squared minus 9 over 1 times 51 over y squared minus 9. Okay, we get cancellations in this first product. Y plus 3 divided by y plus 3 is 1. And we're left with the binomial y minus 3 times 5. In the next product, y minus 3 divided by y minus 3 cancels. And we're left with y plus 3 times 2. And on the right-hand side, y squared minus 9 divided by y squared minus 9 equals 1, and we're left with 51. Okay, then solve this equation for y. We distribute multiplication. Y minus 3 times 5 is 5y minus 15, and then plus 2y plus 6 equals 51. Combine like terms. On the left-hand side, 5y plus 2y is 7y, and minus 15 plus 6 is minus 9. Then add 9 to both sides. We get 7y equals 60, and then divide both sides by 7. Y equals 60 over 7. The restricted values are 3 and -3. Our solution is not restricted. So up here I'll just say y is not permitted to be -3, and it's not permitted to be +3. Okay, the next example, similar to the previous two, but a little bit different. So m plus 11 divided by m to the second minus 5m plus 4 equals 5 over m minus 4 minus 3 over m minus 1. Well, if you multiply m minus 4 times m minus 1, you get m to the second minus 5m plus 4. So the least common denominator, or the least common multiple of the denominators is just m minus 4 times m minus 1. In expanded form, it's m to the second minus 5m plus 4. Okay, so we multiply every term on both sides by the least common denominator. So m to the second minus 5m plus 4 over 1 times m plus 11 over m squared minus 5m plus 4. And then on the right-hand side, m minus 4 times m minus 1 over 1 times 5 over m minus 4. Okay, always be cautious or careful when subtraction is involved. Well, always be careful, but especially so when subtraction. Okay, so we're going to subtract, and then the product of the least common denominator, m minus 4 times m minus 1 over 1 times 3 over m minus 1. Okay, in each of those products, we'll get a cancellation. On the left-hand side, m squared minus 5m plus 4 divided by m squared minus 5m plus 4 equals 1. So we're just left with m plus 11. The first product on the right-hand side, m minus 4 divided by m minus 4 cancels. So we're left with m minus 1 times 5. And then we're going to subtract this product. Here the m minus 1 factors cancel, and we have minus m minus 4 times 3. Okay, in the next step, write m plus 11. M minus 1 times 5 is 5m minus 5. And here we have to subtract the entire product. So we have to subtract m times 3, or minus 3m. And we also subtract negative 4 times 3. So we're subtracting negative 12, which means the same thing as adding 12. Okay, we'll simplify the right-hand side by combining like terms. 5m minus 3m is 2m, and minus 5 plus 12 is plus 7. And in the next step, I'm going to subtract m from both sides and also subtract 7 from both sides. When we subtract m and 7 from both sides, the left-hand side will be 4, and the right-hand side will be m. Okay, but notice, m equals 4 is a restricted value. So m equals 4 is a restricted value. And in our process of solving the equation, we only have one candidate for a solution. But since 4 is restricted, we say that the equation has no solution. So just as everyone has suspected, it is possible to write nonsensical mathematical equations. This equation has no solution. So it's kind of like fake math. Okay, the next one. Just because that particular equation has no solution doesn't automatically mean that other equations that have the same appearance have no solution. You always have to go through the process to verify. Okay, on this one, x plus 13 over x squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 6 over x minus 5 minus 4 over x minus 2. So notice that if you multiply x minus 5 times x minus 2, you get x squared minus 7x plus 10. So the least common denominator is just x minus 5 times x minus 2. If you expand it, multiply those, you get x squared minus 7x plus 10. Okay, so we will multiply every term on both sides by the least common denominator. On the left-hand side, x squared minus 7x plus 10 over 1 times x plus 13 over x squared minus 7x plus 10. On the right-hand side, we'll write the least common denominator in factored form. X minus 5 times x minus 2 over 1 times 6 over x minus 5. And then minus x minus 5 times x minus 2 over 1 times 4 over x minus 2. In each of those products, we get cancellations. So on the left, x squared minus 7x plus 10 divided by x squared minus 7x plus 10. Those cancel, and we're left with x plus 13. In this first product on the right-hand side, x minus 5 divided by x minus 5 equals 1, and we're left with x minus 2 times 6. Then we're subtracting this product. We have a cancellation, x minus 2 divided by x minus 2, and so we have minus x minus 5 times 4. Okay, on the right-hand side, x minus 2 times 6 is 6x minus 12. And here we're going to subtract x times 4, or minus 4x. We're also going to subtract negative 5 times 4. When we subtract negative 20, that's equivalent to adding 20. Okay, on the right-hand side, combine like terms. 6x minus 4x is 2x. Minus 12 plus 20 is plus 8. Okay, so on this one, I'll subtract 8 from both sides and also subtract x from both sides. When we subtract 8, we get 5 on the left-hand side. Subtract x, we get 5 equals x. Uh, 5 is a restricted value. So the equation has no solution because x equals 5 is a restricted value. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Okay, this one's a little more complicated. So we have three denominators, x or y plus 6, y squared minus 36, and 1. So we note that if we factor y to the second minus 36, we get y minus 6 times y plus 6. So y minus 6 times y plus 6 is a multiple of itself because it's y squared minus 36. And then y minus 6 times y plus 6 is a multiple of y plus 6, since multiplying y plus 6 times y minus 6 is a multiple. And then y minus 6 times y plus 6 is also a multiple of 1. So this is the least common denominator, the least common multiple of the denominators. So we multiply every term on both sides by the least common denominator. So on the left-hand side, we multiply y minus 6 times y plus 6 over 1 times y over y plus 6. Then multiply each of the two terms on the right-hand side by the least common denominator. The first term, I'll use the expanded form, y squared minus 36 over 1 times 72 over y squared minus 36. And we also have to multiply 4 over 1 by the least common denominator. So we'll just multiply that by y squared minus 36 times 4. On the left-hand side, we get a cancellation. The y plus 6 binomial factor from the numerator divided by y plus 6 from the denominator. Those cancel. And we're left with y minus 6 times y. On the right-hand side, the first product, y squared minus 36 divided by y squared minus 36 equals 1. So those cancel. So we're left with 72. And on this one, we don't get a cancellation. So we'll just multiply the quantity y squared minus 36 by 4. And we get plus 4y to the second minus 144. Okay, on the left-hand side, y minus 6 times y is y to the second minus 6y. We can simplify the right-hand side to 4y to the second, and 72 minus 144 is negative 72, so we write minus 72. Okay, well now what? Now we have a quadratic equation, a degree 2 polynomial equation. And so far this semester, the only method that we've discussed for solving equations like this is to solve it by factoring. So we're going to set one side equal to 0 and then try to factor the other side. So if we make the left-hand side 0, we will have to subtract y squared from both sides and add 6y to both sides. So we'll do that. We'll make the left-hand side 0. We're going to subtract y squared from both sides. So the right-hand side becomes 3y to the second. We're going to add 6y, so we get plus 6y. And we already have a minus 72. Okay, now we'll see if we can factor the right-hand side. This is an equation that we're trying to solve. And on the right-hand side, the greatest common factor of all three terms is a non-zero number. It's 3. The greatest common factor of the right-hand side is 3. So since we're solving an equation, we are permitted to divide every term on both sides of that equation by the same non-zero number. So we're just going to get rid of the clutter that we don't need by dividing every term on both sides by 3. 0 divided by 3 is 0. 3y to the second divided by 3 is y to the second. Plus 6y divided by 3 is plus 2y. And minus 72 divided by 3 is minus 24. Okay, now we're going to factor the right-hand side, y squared plus 2y minus 24. And if we can factor it, then we'll be able to find the solutions. We might as well practice the AC method. So up here we'll use the AC method. Okay, so the coefficient of y squared is 1. The constant is negative 24. 1 times negative 24 is negative 24. And find two integers that have a product of negative 24 and a sum of positive 2. So what did you come up with?
Negative 4, positive 6.
Yeah, 4 and negative 6. Whoops, sorry. Negative 4 and positive 6. Yeah, the one with the largest absolute value has to be positive because when you add them, it's positive 2. Okay, negative 4 and 6. So rewrite y squared plus 2y minus 24 as y squared minus 4y plus 6y minus 24. And then factor by grouping. Out of the first two terms, we factor the greatest common factor y out, and the binomial is y minus 4. The middle operator is addition, so we bring down addition. Out of the third and fourth term, 6y minus 24, we factor out positive 6, and then y minus 4. And then the complete factorization, y minus 4 times y plus 6. This equation has two solutions, positive 4 and negative 6. Remember what we're doing, though. We're solving this equation with rational expressions. The original equation has two restricted values. So we always want to keep in mind what the restricted values are. The restricted values are positive 6 for y and negative 6. Since one of our candidates for a solution is restricted, we cannot list it as a solution. So the only solution to that equation is y equals 4. Okay, so y equals 4 is the only solution. All right, there's a question on the YouTube. Are the restricted values just the least common denominator? Well, I think I know what you mean, but not exactly. The restricted values are the values that make the least common denominator equal to 0. So in this case, the least common denominator is y squared minus 36. And so the restricted values are positive 6 and negative 6, because when you replace y with either positive 6 or negative 6, you get 0. So yes, the restricted values are determined by the least common denominator. But if the least common denominator is just a non-zero number, then in those cases, there aren't restricted values. Okay, the next one, x over 2x minus 2 minus 2 over 3x plus 3 equals 5x squared minus 2x plus 9. Okay, so what's going on this time? This denominator, 2x minus 2, let's look at the denominators separately. 2x minus 2 is 2 times x minus 1. 3x plus 3 is 3 times the binomial x plus 1. The third denominator, 12x squared minus 12, if you factor 12 out, it's 12 times x squared minus 1. But you can factor x squared minus 1 to x minus 1 times x plus 1. Okay, so to find the least common denominator, we'll focus on 2 times the binomial x minus 1, 3 times the binomial x plus 1, and 12 times the binomial x minus 1 times the binomial x plus 1. So first look at the numerical factors of those denominators. The numerical factors are 2, 3, and 12. So the least common multiple of 2, 3, and 12 is 12. Then compare the binomial factors. This denominator has one factor of x minus 1. So that means x minus 1 has to be in the factorization of the least common denominator. The denominator on the right has x minus 1. So the least common denominator will have one factor of x minus 1. And then the other binomial that appears is x plus 1. So the least common denominator has to have at least one factor of x plus 1. But since this third denominator only has one factor of x plus 1, then x plus 1 is all we need to make the least common denominator. So 12 times x minus 1 times x plus 1 is the least common multiple of the denominators. Okay, so now we multiply every term on both sides by the least common denominator. So we might be pressed for space here, so I'll try to write a little bit smaller. 12 times x minus 1 times x plus 1 over 1 times x over, I'll write this in factored form, 2 times x minus 1. And then multiply the least common denominator by the next term. So this one's times 2 over 3 times x plus 1. And on the right-hand side, we'll just write 12x squared minus 12 over 1 times that numerator, 5x squared minus 2x plus 9 over the least common denominator, 12x squared minus 12. So I hope you can make sense out of that. It's not too bad. Okay, we get cancellations in each of those. So in this first product, 12 divided by 2 is 6. X minus 1 divided by x minus 1 cancels, and then we have x plus 1 times x left. And then we're subtracting another product. Okay, in this one, 12 divided by 3 is 4. X plus 1 divided by x plus 1 cancels. And we're left with x minus 1 times 2. Okay, on the right-hand side, 12x squared minus 12 cancels with 12x squared minus 12. And so the right-hand side is just 1 times 5x squared minus 2x plus 9. Okay, on this product, you need to be pretty careful here. 6 times x plus 1 times x. So if we multiply 6 times x plus 1 first, then we have to multiply that entire quantity by x. And in the next product, we're subtracting 4 times x minus 1 times 2. So we have to subtract. Well, I'll do this in a couple of steps. We're going to subtract and then multiply 4 times x minus 1. So we get 4x minus 4, and then times 2. The right-hand side stays the same for now, 5x squared minus 2x plus 9. Okay, then this product, 6x plus 6 times x is 6x to the second plus 6x. And then in this next one, we have to subtract 4x times 2. So that means we subtract 8x. And we're also subtracting -4 times 2. So we're subtracting -8, which means the same thing as adding 8. And then the right-hand side stays the same for the time being. Okay, let's go ahead and simplify the left-hand side, combining plus 6x minus 8x to give us minus 2x. And now we'll see if we can solve by factoring. So let's make the right-hand side 0 by subtracting 5x squared from both sides and subtracting 1 from both sides. So when we subtract 5x squared from both sides, the left-hand side will just have x squared. When we add 2x to both sides, we get 0x. No x's left, no x terms left. Subtract 1. 8 minus 9 is -1, and so we get x squared minus 1 equals 0. We can solve this by factoring. X minus 1 times x plus 1 is 0. So we get x equals 1 and x equals -1. Okay, but both of those numbers are restricted values. So here's our least common denominator, 12 times x minus 1 times x plus 1. So both x equals 1 and x equals -1 are restricted values. So that equation has no solution. No solution. Okay, let's try this last one. See how far we can get on this one. So one denominator is 3x squared minus 10x plus 3. Another denominator is 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. And the third denominator is x squared minus 2x minus 3. So we want to know the factors of each of those. So one of the denominators, the one on the left, 3x squared minus 10x plus 3. So we want to factor that, 3x squared minus 10x plus 3. Since we only have about 4 minutes, I'll see if I can figure out what the factors are. Let's see. Yeah, so if we have 3x minus 1 times x minus 3, those are the two factors of 3x squared minus 10x plus 3. The second denominator, 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. I'll see if I can find those factors. So on this one, I need 3x minus 1 times x plus 1. The third denominator, x squared minus 2x minus 3. This one's easier. It's just x minus 3 times x plus 1. So the least common denominator has to represent all of those denominators. 3x minus 1 appears in two denominators, so it's part of the least common denominator. X minus 3 is also in the least common denominator, and x plus 1. So that's all we need for the least common denominator. Okay, when you multiply the least common denominator by the first term, 4 over 3x squared minus 10x plus 3, the 3x minus 1 factors and the x minus 3 factors cancel. So that will leave us with 4 times x plus 1. In the next rational expression, when we multiply 3 over 3x squared plus 2x minus 1 by the least common denominator. So here's the factorization of the middle denominator. The 3x minus 1 factors cancel and the x plus 1 factors cancel. And we're just left with plus 3 times x minus 3. And then on the right-hand side, this time the x minus 3 and the x plus 1 factors cancel, which leaves us with the factor 3x minus 1. So this one becomes 2 times 3x minus 1. So we have a few seconds left. We can apply the distributive property. 4 times x plus 1 is 4x plus 4. And then plus 3x minus 9 equals 6x minus 2. So we get 7x minus 5 equals 6x minus 2. Subtract 6x from both sides and add 5 to both sides. We get x equals 3. But 3 is restricted, so no solution. Okay, that's all we have time for today. We'll move on to the next section on Monday.